Somebody said that they like seeing the car get dropped off by the tow truck in the videos, so where possible I try to show that. But what we're going to do today is a little different than the norm, and that is not so much a tutorial video on the diagnostics. I'm pretty confident that we're not going to have anything we haven't seen before today. And I don't think we're going to see anything groundbreaking. Of course, as you guys know, how many times have I said that? We end up with a 5-part series where I learn some whole new system. But I especially don't think that's going to happen today. So the point of today's video is not going to be so much the tutorial and step-by-step kind of thing, but more of you kind of looking over my shoulder as I go through my day, as I would if I was not filming. And you will notice some differences. Of course, you are going to expect that, for example, the car that just got dropped off, I'm pretty sure I'm going to make a call that it needs a starter on it. Now, of course, I'm not going to just guess at that because it's a no crank, no start. But I'm going to obviously not do the thing that 98% of people are going to do, and they're going to say, hey, you can hear the starter click, that's a bad starter. You know, yeah, it probably is, but that's stupid. I'm not going to do that. That's what really 98% of people are going to do. You're also going to get your people that are going to check, is it a bad battery? Could it be bad ignition switch? Something like that. And of course, we would be expected to not only do that, but also eliminate other variables. Voltage drop would be a major concern, for example. Nobody's going to check that, right? So that would be your expectation, but realistically, that's because of what you see me typically do on the channel, because we want to be 100% accurate. First and foremost, that's because of the nature of this channel. We're trying to show you multitudes of ways of doing things, given all kinds of various equipment you may have. Typically, we just use basic do-it-yourself equipment like you guys have, because I'm a do-it-yourselfer too. That's the way that we would do it. But it doesn't mean you can't do a 100% accurate diagnosis most of the time. You guys know that. The other reason, of course, most of you guys know is my policy that if I make a call that a car needs a part and I am wrong, I pay for that part. So if I make a call, this car needs a starter, and we put a starter in it, and it still doesn't start, I pay for that starter. I don't stick the customer going, well, now that we replaced the starter, I can see you also have this other. No, I don't do that. But that said, what you are going to notice different in this video is because I'm a little bit time constrained, I may and probably will make a call without being 100% certain. And this is just to show you guys the reality. You know, I'm not a professional, but I can sympathize with the fact that if I was, you've got to produce. I don't know the environment for sure. I never worked in one, but I would imagine you got all these cars coming into the shop or the dealership, and you can't sit there and spend 7 hours diagnosing a starter. You have to make that call as quick as you can and get that car out of there because you are trying to churn profit here. And I can understand that. And yeah, if you are 90% certain that a car needs a starter, you would make that call as opposed to that 10% uncertainty, but it may take you 2 hours to eliminate that. That would be a problem, because if you continually did that, it turns out you would lose money over the long term versus the occasional miscall that you get not being 100% accurate. And for me, that's usually not an issue. Of course, I don't do this for profit or anything. Yeah, you can make some good money off of it, and I do actually. But that's not really what drives me, and especially on one of the cars coming in where it's from a woman who is suffering from cancer, and quite honestly, you know, we're going to do everything we can to help her out at no charge because of that situation. But I don't have to churn out cars at a record pace to make a profit. But I also do this on my weekends, and I would like to have a little time. So yeah, on this car, if I am 90% certain this car needs a starter, you're going to see me make a call. Does that make me a parts changer? Yeah, it does. By definition, it does. But that's not always a bad thing from a financial perspective, and also just from a practical perspective. It's not always. There is a difference, though. The difference is I am not going to make an uncertain call because I do not understand a concept or know how to do something. I am going to probably make a short call on this just simply for time savings. So people can fool themselves all they want, but when you skip through all the voltage tests and amperage tests and everything, saying, well, you know, it's probably not that and I don't have time. Oh yeah, you're not fooling anybody. You just don't know how to do it. And that's what we do on this channel. I am actually going to do those tests as a way to be 90% certain minimum, so that I do minimize my chance that I'm wrong. So not doing a full diagnosis because you don't know how, that's not a valid excuse. Not doing a full diagnosis because you know the degree of certainty and you know mathematically in the long run you come out ahead with a little bit of a guessing than you do spending too much time on diagnostics, that's a valid reason. Still makes you a parts changer though. All right, so that said, let's take a look at this car. We've got a 2013 Hyundai, hey, I pronounced it right, Hyundai, God, I don't even know what model it is. I think it's an Accent, 4-cylinder engine on these things, and it has a no crank, no start. I know a little bit of history in that the owner states that they've continually had a little bit of a problem where they would have the no crank, no start, but then the car would start and then it would go weeks sometimes with no problem, but then it would go where every day it has this problem and you just keep cranking, trying to get it to go, and then eventually it starts. Today, no such luck. The guy tried all morning trying to get this thing to start. It would not crank at all. So that's why I believe I'm not saying that I should rephrase that. That's why I'm going in the direction that this is a starter motor problem. I am definitely not making that call, but I know I'm going in that direction. So let's go ahead and see if we can reproduce the results. And I'm just going to do this like you guys weren't even here, but I'll talk through it. All right, so one of the first things I want to do, this guy's been cranking this all morning, so obviously I'm suspecting the battery may be weak. I need to make sure the battery has full charge on it so that I don't accidentally make a wrong call just because he wore out the battery trying to crank this thing. All right, let's see here. Battery right there. Let me get my brand new auto ranging multimeter that Vicki got me for Christmas. All right, and oh wow, we've got fully charged battery. Well, supposedly we've got full charge, but we don't know that it has the capacity quite yet to withstand the cranking. That certainly is a variable. That maybe this is just bad battery. I think what I'm going to do is just turn on the lights real quick here. I'm going to give this like a minute. And quite honestly, that's holding pretty steady. So not looking like a battery problem right now. I need to reposition this where I can see it. And I want to look at how much we drop when I crank this car over. Kind of funny how the battery recovered a little voltage, actually, it seems, even after having the lights on. So yeah, here it just click, still maintains really high voltage. That's not a battery problem. All right, so just keeping track in my mind right now, because that's typically what I would do instead of using the dry erase board of knowledge. I'm now thinking of variables. Obviously, I'm really thinking starter here. My variables right now are that this could be some type of voltage drop problem. This could be a frozen engine. Very unlikely. That is just bottom of the triage. Or bad starter. That's pretty much where I'm at right now. That starter clicking sound was from the solenoid, so I'm not going to blame relay or something like that. Clearly, load side power is getting there. What I'm doubting is whether it's full load side power or not. So obviously, you guys are thinking, well, you know, let's do voltage drop next. Well, the thing is that here's a problem. The problem is the starter is underneath the intake manifold on this engine. I do believe I can reach it from under the engine, But what I'm going to do is I can't even see it. Oh, I can see part of the starter. You won't be able to, but I can see part of the starter, just a little bit of it sticking out from the intake manifold. So what I'm going to do is get a pry bar, and here's something you won't see a lot on the Schrodinger's Box channel, but I'm not filming right now, so unbeknownst to you guys, this is actually what I do. I'm going to try to hit the starter with this pry bar. Right there it is. And see if I can get it to start. Well, there goes my pry bar. Hopefully that worked. All right, if that starts the car, I am making a call. This car needs a starter. And even then, I'm going to start taking the starter out before I buy one, just to make sure it wasn't bad connections or something like that while I'm in there. But we would be removing the starter. Let's see if that does anything. Nope, nothing at all. A lot easier to do this if you've got somebody else that's trying to crank it while you're hitting it. Again, I am not filming right now, so this is the quickest way for me to make a diagnosis. When I do diagnoses at my home, they're free because I like doing this. It's fun. Right now it's about 32 degrees outside. If I go in the field and do a diagnosis, I charge $35, unless the person has some extenuating circumstance like the cancer patient coming up in a little bit. Then I still do it free. But if I can make this call right now and I make $35 in less than 2 minutes, that's a pretty good earnings rate. All right, nothing. Going for speed here, I can see right here, I can reach the crankshaft right there. So I am going to just really quickly, because it's so easy to reach, I'm going to see if I can turn this engine over. When you do this, super important, I want to think safety here. I got to make sure that the key is out, ignition is off. It is. You do this with the ignition on. You could actually start the engine because you activate that crank sensor signal. Now, I'm only doing this because of the easy accessibility here. If this crank bolt was not accessible, I would not be wasting my time with this. And yeah, I can move the engine just a little bit, but this just took me less than a minute to do. We've eliminated a variable. All right, not quite ready to make the call yet. We've only had a couple minutes here, and we're only going to do one other quick thing. If this is a starter problem, this problem is going to be more evidenced towards the area of the starter motor. We're not going to have, for example, voltage drop from poor ignition switch contact, things like that. I do not believe we do. The ignition switch would activate the relay. We know the relay is activating, so this is not a bad ignition switch problem or anything. But I just want to verify that wherever our problem is, it's on the load side of the circuit after the relay. More evidence, this is definitely with the starter. All right, and the only reason for doing this is because if the car starts now, I am not going to do a starter motor. So this is more of an elimination, like a null hypothesis thing. Oh, good. I love it when they put the key on here. Starter relay is right here. I'm going to find the load side. Right there, I'm going to grab a paper clip. And again, this is more of a elimination thing than anything else. If the starter motor starts right now, it's something else. So make, again, as I always say, absolutely certain you're doing load side and not control side. All right, you hear the starter motor still just clicks. So this is more evidence towards the starter motor. The other thing is that instantly this paper clip became really, really, really hot, which is indicating to me starter motor's frozen in position. We have high amperage through the circuit. And again, when the starter motor isn't turning, of course, you're going to have really, really high amperage because you have no load, basically. So I got to honestly tell you, based on that, our only variables would right now either be bad starter motor or voltage drop on the circuit. I'm just going to take a quick look under the car and just see if I cannot easily access battery positive terminal on the starter motor, I'm going to make a call. This car needs a starter motor. Don't know how you guys feel about that. I'm comfortable with it. And if I'm wrong and it costs me a couple $100, well, over years of doing this, I would still come out way ahead if I charged for my diagnoses, for sure, because I'd be making $35 for like 3 minutes of work. Let's take a look under the car. Oh, check it out. You can see the starter right there. So yeah, just because this is easy to do, I'm going to do a voltage drop test on this. And then we can be 100% certain, because that's our only variables right now. So we got battery positive there. There is no ground on here. So this is going to ground to the block. So I really only need to worry about voltage drop on the positive terminal. I'm like 95% certain this car needs a starter motor. 95% is good enough for me. But luckily in this case, I can take it to 100. All I have to do is just connect up my voltmeter just like that. And let's set the voltmeter up top where we can see it. All right, get that relay back in there, and let's do a voltage drop test. And, you know, a little bit of subjectivity on this, I do believe. I'm not sure there's a spec for voltage drop. I have never, ever done a voltage drop test on a starter motor cable and not found at least half a volt of drop, at least. And typically it's a little closer to 3/4 of a volt or so. So basically, if there is anything less than 1 volt of drop on this starter cable, I am going to eliminate voltage drop as the problem, and that is it, 100% starter motor. So let's see what happens here. We have, wow, almost exactly 1 volt of drop. That's like by 1,000th of a volt, really. Well, I am going to stick with that. With the strength of this battery, there is no question the starter motor would have no problem turning over, even with 1 volt of drop. Little more than I like to see, but voltage drop is not the problem here. And this car needs a starter motor. That is all there is to it. I have made my call. All right, well, there you have it, like 5 minutes. And I know for a fact I'm going to replace this starter in this car, and it is going to start. It's just science. I know that. You know, I'm just fortunate in this case that I was able to do the voltage drop test to really lock it down. Had I not been able to do the voltage drop test, well, actually, I thought there was some kind of, on my Picoscope, some kind of a starter motor test, maybe. I don't know that the starter motor has to be running to actually do that, but I thought there was something. The guy who donated the scope, C5 Diag, has been kind of pouncing on me a little bit to use the diagnostics program from the thing. He says, like, you've got to use that. And, I keep telling him I will, and I never have. You know what? Just simply because we made this diagnosis so fast, and we know we've got a positive control. We know we've got a bad starter motor. You know what? I'm just curious to see how we would use Picoscope to maybe diagnose this, if we can. I may be wrong about this, but let me just hook that up real quick, and let's just see that, because we saved so much time because we know how to do a diagnosis quickly. So let's see what happens here. All right, and I know a lot of you guys are saying, well, wait a minute, I thought you just said you were going to do what you normally do when you're not filming. Yeah, I am. This is exactly what I would normally do when I'm not filming, because this is how I teach myself this stuff. I honestly have no idea what I'm doing here, and as a matter of fact, typically this is what I would do when I'm not filming, because I would figure this out first so that I can show you how to do it. Hey, here is a way that you can do this. But for this video, I'm showing you what I would do when I'm not filming, and taking advantage of something where I can maybe learn a new technique. Yeah, I do that all the time when I'm not filming. So what I'm going to do is I'm not quite sure what the connections are, but let's get you over to the Pico screen. So actually, you guys who are really hardcore are going to notice something here, and that is I've downgraded to Pico 6 software instead of Pico 7. I got a brand new laptop as the hard drive on my other one that I've had for probably like 8 years has failed finally, and had to get a brand new laptop. And one of the problems is that I found that my Pico 7 did not work with the new laptop because there was some type of an incompatibility problem with the Intel graphics processor that I have. So Picoscope actually does have kind of a patch for it where it disables the hardware acceleration, and I can still use Picoscope 7, but because I'm worried about compatibility with other things, other applications, I just downgraded to Picoscope 6, which is compatible with this processor. So that's the reason why I'm using Picoscope 6, and this is a little bit unfamiliar to me. And I believe I go to Automotive and System Tests, and oh, you know what? I apologize. I'm in the wrong program. C5 Diag's like, don't do that. Go here to Pico Diagnostics. All right, so we're going to go to Pico Diagnostics. This is unfamiliar territory to me, and I made a mistake. There is not a starter test. I misspoke. There's a battery test. Also a compression test, which of course is also going to be related with the starter. So I think I just got it in my mind. Now that said, I would like to do the battery test because that would be, I know that there's like a really cool battery test, he said. So we're going to go here. Okay, so on the Picoscope 7 software, I know that there is like a walkthrough on the connections that you would make. This does not seem to have one. And I want to get some directions on here. So, well, I said I'd be filming as if I wasn't filming, and this is the way it would go. Well, there's some stuff down here I know I need to fill out. So we've got 12-volt lead acid. Temperature is it's in Celsius. In the garage right now, it's about 60 degrees, which would be about 16 Celsius. I wonder if I can change that to Fahrenheit somehow. It may be under options. Nope, not under options. View, maybe, I don't think it's going to be under view. It's going to be under like preference. There it is, preferences. And wow, what's this? Oh, you can enter the name of your shop and everything. Probably under general. Nope. Help improve by submitting anonymous statistics. I'll do that for Pico 7. Oh, there it is, right? Oh, wait, it says Fahrenheit. Let's change it to Celsius. Let's change it back to Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit. System default is US. Apply. Well, why doesn't it turn to... all right, I don't know why it doesn't turn to Fahrenheit, but battery temperature, I can tell you, that's going to be an important criteria to enter. So it's going to be about 16 degrees. Cold cranking amps, that would be written on the battery. It says 650. Okay, and then I don't see what connections you make. Is this amperage over here? Let's try start. No, it's voltage. Oh, wait a minute. So we need two connections on here. We need a battery voltage, so that's going to be easy. And then we'll need a battery current. But I don't know what the scale is going to be. Like, is this going to be for a 40 amp probe? So like I said, on the Picoscope 7 software, I know there's a walkthrough, and it shows you the connections. Let's try the help menu here. Oh, look, tests. Oh, look, battery test. Okay, well, wait a minute. We can actually do some research here. All right, introduction to use the battery test. Click on battery test, yes. Oh, well, here's an interesting thing. If you have a surface charge, actually, I would not be aware of this. What this is going to say, it won't apply to us, but if you just charged the battery and you have that surface charge where it's like 13.5 volts or something like that, that can affect the results, something I wouldn't have thought of. Let's go to connections. Yeah, this is kind of what I'm familiar with on Picoscope 7. It walks you through here. So we need to do regular voltage input on channel A. It shows starter current on the positive on B. That would be easier for me to do on the negative, and I guarantee you can do it on the negative because we know that amperage doesn't matter. We don't need to be on a specific polarity with amperage. As a matter of fact, it even says or the negative cable here. So, oh, wait a minute. We need a 600 amp current clamp. I don't know that I have one of those. What else does it have here? If you have a 4-channel scope, then you can do the following, and you can get positive and negative terminal specific data. I have a 2-channel. Let me see if I've got a 600 amp current clamp, though. All right, yes, I remember I do have one. So let's see, channel A, we needed to hook up to battery voltage here. You'll notice I got some little adapters for my Picoscope because it uses BNC connectors, and everything I have is banana connectors. So I, rather than use the wire adapters with the Picoscope, I just bought these for like, I don't know, like $3. Then I need to connect up my 600 amp current clamp. And I'm just going to go right around negative battery cable like that. And let's take a look at our screen. And nothing new there. Options. Select options. I'm just going to do whatever their default is. Running the test. Oh, well, wait a minute. That's a cranking test. I think you need to be able to have the starter motor moving for this. And that's because with the amperage, I can see a compression pattern here. So let me see here. While test is running, B. Because what's happening is you've got a voltage drop here as your amperage increased when starting the motor. And then you can see actually your voltage is higher here than here because now the engine's running. So you've got the alternator contributing. So I do believe that this needs to be a cranking test. I'm very sure of that. So we will not be able to do this because we can't crank the engine. Let's see what kind of results you get. Oh, and then it's just kind of a litmus test here. Positive or negative. Let's see here. I believe it's going to ask us to crank. Yeah, start the engine. Well, let's go ahead and try it. Wait, one of the things, I have to zero my probe. I just noticed that we're reading 5 amps on the battery current. So let's zero that. 12.7 on the battery. Yeah, I'm just going to crank it, see what happens. All right, well, I can't crank it, and you can see it's waiting for the engine to start. So it has some kind of detection that it's looking for a change in that pattern so that it knows that the engine started and it knows when to stop it at 5 seconds. Yeah, we're going to have to come back to that, but I am kind of curious. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to try to get this car started. I'm just really curious about this test. I'm kind of excited about it, because it looks pretty techy. So I'm going to hit the starter motor from underneath with a hammer. All right, let's see if we can get this thing started. I want to see my test. Oh, nice. Okay, so it's capturing, waiting. It said waiting for charging, so that's how it knows to finish the capture when it senses the charging. And we got a data output, and everything's green. That battery is good. Let's take a look at this. All right, well, I'm not going to lie. This is actually really amazing. But as you can see, we've got our voltage in blue, our amperage in red. You can see both on the voltage and the amperage, the relative compression. We've never done it, I don't believe, on this channel. You can use battery voltage for relative compression. You can do that. Usually not as clean as you get with the amperage. But on some models, that's about all you're going to be able to do because you're not going to be able to access cable very easily. And then we can see that when we start, we of course get a massive rush of amperage here as the starter motor starts. And then as we start the engine, you get the voltage drop with the amperage. We of course know that from basic electrical on this channel. And then as we finally get the engine running, we now have no amperage, of course, through the starter anymore because I'm stopping that. And then we see that our voltage up here is much higher than it was initially, and that's because the alternator kicked in, and we even saw a message that it looks for the alternator to kick in. And then it gives us a bunch of data here. Now, how it knows these things, like the internal resistance, the actual capacity, and that it's 80% of the 650, how it knows some of these things, I am not sure. And it even detected ripple, and I don't know how it actually knows these things. Obviously, it must do some kind of mathematical calculation with some formulas I'm not familiar with. But bottom line, the battery on this car is eliminated as a suspect for this problem. That is actually super cool. Wow, okay, nice. All right, I get more impressed with that Picoscope every day. C5 Diag, I got to hand it to you. He kept on telling me, use the diagnostics. It's not what you think. I thought the diagnostics thing was just like for dummies. Like I know how to set up a scope. I know what I want to do. What I did not realize is that it has all of this other stuff you cannot do on just the basic scope inputs. I did not know that until just now, and I am super excited about that. We will definitely be playing with that a little bit more, just simply because it's cool. We're not going to use the scope on most of the diagnostics, but again, today I'm filming what I would do if I wouldn't normally film, and this would be an exciting day for me. That is not what I was expecting. I just thought it's like, hey, if you're stupid, here's how to set up your scope. And I know how to set it up. We know basic electrical on this channel. We know how to set it up. These are things that I don't know how I would calculate, and I honestly have no interest in. All right, so we got the diagnosis done. That car needs a starter motor. What I'm going to do is, the other car has not arrived yet, so I am going to go get a starter motor, replace the starter motor, just confirm the fix, and then we'll take a look at the next car that comes in. All right, starter is replaced. We will now see if I owe $200 because I made the wrong call. And to be honest with you, I find this to be very anticlimactic. I know that I made the right call. There's no question about it. It has to be the starter. It's just science. By the way, I also had a very easy time replacing this because I asked you guys to share some of the cool tools that you may have got for Christmas on my Christmas special video. I will show you one of them that I got, a battery-operated kind of air ratchet replacement thing here. So this is super handy. You guys know I've, since the beginning of the channel, had that DeWalt 3/8 Impact that still is operating off the same batteries, by the way, after like 8 years, 9 years, whatever it's been. But it doesn't get into really tight spaces and everything. This does. Made really short work of the starter replacement. But again, I already know this car is going to start. If it doesn't, there is logical explanation. Either the starter out of the box is bad, I forgot to connect something. But if all of those are true, that the starter is good, everything's connected, and it still does not start, the implications for me are gigantic. It means that all scientific laws of the universe are inconsistent and therefore useless. And I would, honestly, you have no explanation for that. I would have to choose a religion. I would have to start researching religions and everything, because I can't go on my current religion, which is that the scientific method done properly and covering all variables, if you do that, you will find the etiological cause, and that would no longer be true. So for me, yeah, this is like everything is relying on this car starting. It has nothing to do with this car. It has to do with laws of the universe, of being consistent. So this is a very big deal, but to be honest with you, I'm not worried about it. So let me go ahead and start this car up and we'll move on to the next one. All right. And, oh, for God's sakes. All right. It would help if I connected the battery up. Like I said, logical explanation. All right. This car is going to start, not even worried. There we go. All righty. All right. All right. I will admit that was kind of funny, but You know, I am actually serious about that. The car has to start. It's just science. But that was a little funny. All right, this one's done. Let's get the next car in. Oh, that was pretty cool with the Picoscope, I thought. Also true to the theme of today's video, things that I do when I'm not filming that I normally do. One of those would be kind of philosophizing about stuff when I'm sort of doing the monkey wrench kind of stuff. When I'm doing diagnostics, I love that, and I'm really full focus on it and everything, but when I'm finally fixing the thing as a result, replacing the starter, maybe if I'm doing like replacing shocks, something like that, yeah, my mind kind of wanders a little bit and I start philosophizing about stuff like that. I don't know, maybe you do too, maybe it's therapeutic, but whatever the case is, let's look at what was brought in here next. This did not come in on a tow truck, but probably should have. All right, we have a Honda Element here. I do not know the year. My guess, I think it's something like a 2003, something like that, I guess. But whatever the case is, it has a little bit of an interesting history here. So let's cover what's going on with this thing. So this car, a person on the Nextdoor app, again, has found me. Well, actually, I found them. They were advertising. The owner of this car actually has bone cancer and probably, well, they're having a very challenging experience for sure. And the last thing they need is dealing with the car problems that are preventing the lady from going to the doctor's appointments and things that is necessary right now to help extend her life expectancy as much as possible. So the car has a, as was described on the Nextdoor thing, a flashing check engine light. The woman needs to register the vehicle for emissions and all that in Colorado here. And obviously you're not going to be able to do that with the check engine light on. She asked, how can I turn off the check engine light so that she can get the car to pass the emissions? Of course, everybody in their armchairs gave her all the whole plethora of armchair mechanic advice. You got to disconnect the battery for a while, take it to AutoZone, they'll clear the codes. There were other people that knew a little bit more. Flashing check engine light means you have a misfire, change the spark plugs, things like that. So as you can imagine, the car has now, as a result of all of this horrible advice, new spark plugs, new coils, new oxygen sensor, everything that, you know how this goes. We've done this before. And then finally I discovered the post. Of course, you can imagine how I put everybody in their place a bit. The woman was impressed with my response enough that she decided to have me look at the car. So we know that it has the flashing check engine light. That is going to be a misfire. So we're going to determine exactly what the cause is, of course, and I will let her know what is in store for it. The other thing, too, she gave me this. All right, this is from carparts.com or something like that. And these are tie rods. And because the car has a bit of a pull to it, and right now in Colorado, that is the last thing you want because with the winter weather, that makes it pretty dangerous if you have to slam on the brakes and the car is pulling to one side. The tire shop told her that she had bent tie rod. I did not confirm this, but she went ahead and bought 2 tie rods for me to install new tie rods so that she has safer control of her vehicle once we fix this misfire. All right, sounds like a simple enough plan and even some pre-planning there, except for one problem, and that is, well, you're going to see, actually. It was blatantly obvious when I brought the car into the garage what the issue is. Let's see if you agree with me on this. I'm going to put my microphone here. Gosh, you guys that watch the channel, like, you already know what's coming here, I know. I try to figure out a way to not do this, but I kind of feel like I'm letting the cat out of the bag already. All right, we'll let you go ahead and take a listen. Just from that, that's enough for me. All right, well, some of you guys may have been able to pick up on that. Maybe not, but this This car doesn't have a clear flood mode, and I'm thinking the coils are probably right underneath here. I'll just take these off with my hand because someone else was already in here. They didn't really fasten these down. Yeah, there's coils there. So I'm going to disconnect these coils here. All right, now you're going to be able to tell for sure. All right, that's it. We're done. It should be blatantly obvious to you if you have even watched a handful of videos on this channel. That car has an absolute definite compression problem, and that is going to be bad news for sure. So here's the thing, though, is that, again, I'm not filming here, so for all practical purposes, quite honestly, depending on how busy I am, I would pretty much be done with this, and I would call the customer and say, here's the thing, you have a compression problem, very minimum, at the very minimum, that cylinder head's coming off. The only rare exception to this would be something like if a valve spring is broken and you manage to not bend the valve and you can replace that or something. It's so infinitesimally unlikely. And also the fact that, as you heard, the engine runs without a whole clatter and rattle and everything like that. So, you know, based on this, there is just no question about it. This car has a compression problem. It is not going to be easily fixable. And what I do in this case is I would call the customer and just tell them that at very minimum, even if I did the work and you know, remove the cylinder head and do whatever is necessary, that's even assuming it's a top-end problem. This could have, for all I know, a blown ring, a hole in the piston. That would be an engine rebuild, basically. But even if it's a top-end problem, I mean, you're still talking well over $1,000. And the thing is, I know for a fact this woman doesn't have it. I know for a fact. So there's really no reason to pursue this much further. All right, now there are some variables that go into this. Some of them, how much time I have available. I happen to have time right now. And yeah, if I was not filming, which I'm not right now, remember, for something like this, knowing the woman's situation, knowing what a really critical thing this is, she's already spent hundreds of dollars on this thing from people trying to help. She needs the car for getting to the doctor and stuff like that. I mean, this is a bad situation. There's no way around it. This is a bad situation. If I'm going to tell this woman, well, here's the thing. Yeah, I'm just another one of those asshats that you found on Nextdoor, except I'm saying that instead of you needing to spend a couple $100 to fix this thing, I'm telling you that your engine is blown. I feel like I need substantial evidence for that, more than I think I would need in other situations. And even in general, if I'm going to tell somebody, yeah, my diagnosis, your engine is blown and you need a cylinder head replacement, yeah, I feel like that's something that you better have some damn good evidence for. It's just, given this woman's record and the repercussions of if I'm wrong, and I am not, I can tell just from that sound. We discussed this in a previous video. Not on this channel, but on my paid channel. We discussed this where we showed there are variables to this where you can have that apparent loss of compression, but it's actually due to other variables rather than compression, not with that sound. That is a compression thing. So if I wasn't filming this, because of the nature of this, I feel like I need to do some more. The other thing is that there is some learning opportunity here. We did notice on the Picoscope there was a compression test available in the Pico Diagnostics. You have seen me do relative compression test probably 20 times on this channel, but we've never done it with the Pico test. And look at that battery test. So I think there is some potential to kind of kill a couple birds with one stone. One of them, that I can get something to show quantitative evidence to this woman. I am not wrong. You have a serious issue here. But then also I kind of am a little bit curious to see what the Pico diagnostic test shows for relative compression that may be different than what I normally do. So let's get something that we can put on paper to show this woman that she has a big decision to make here. And the other thing is, no, I am really disinclined to put those tie rod ends into this vehicle without talking to her, knowing what her decision is on the future of this thing. Maybe she wants to just abandon it and get something else, in which case we can save her the money and have her return those tie rods, right? So let's get some quantitative information on this. The first thing I need to do is I need to find which cylinder is missing. All right, given that, we're going to again use my amp probe here for relative compression. We're going to do that on channel A. And then channel B, I want to coordinate this with a number one spark. So we have a 3-wire coil here, so I want to find the signal wire for number one, and I can just look at the wire colors and tell it's going to be this yellow wire right here. So let me get something for that. All right, so the first thing I want to do is a little research. I need the firing order of the vehicle. You know, again, Googling this is actually a lot like using those forums. You get a lot of misinformation, but it's pretty clear overwhelmingly that the firing order is going to be 1342. That is going to be useful for my cylinder identification. And we also have the numbering of the cylinders from front of vehicle left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the information I needed. And then the other thing is we've got to go to our Picoscope. I just realized out of habit, I of course set up the way that I just wanted to do it for my own way that I was going to do the cylinder identification for what's misfiring. And I totally forgot we're going to be using Pico Diagnostics this time. It may have a totally different way of doing it. So we're going to go to compression test. Oh yeah, once again, we need to go to the help and do our tests and compression test. Oh, it has a cylinder balance test too. That's interesting. All right, so let's expand this out. All right, gives a little background about compression test. We have two, relative and absolute. We will, of course, do a relative test. Really not interested in an absolute test here. The absolute test would be a numerical value. For this test, I imagine that would require some type of a pressure transducer so that it can quantitate one of the cylinders and then calculate it out using the relative test. We showed a manual way to do that in an older video. Test conditions, of course, like with any compression test. All right, connections. Well, okay, so I'm not going to be doing a pressure transducer. Let's see, connect one of the general test BNC cables to channel A. On the other end, a large lead and black. Oh, okay, so this is interesting. This is interesting. I, of course, was planning on doing it off of starter current. They are going to do this test off of battery voltage is what this is saying. I would not have expected that. The other thing with the pressure transducer, I'm assuming, is that it will tell you to put the transducer in a known cylinder that maybe you assign that cylinder number, and then it would automatically do the firing order calculation for you. Let's see if it gives any... well, these directions are a little bit aggravating in that I don't have a pressure transducer, and what I want to do is sync it with a firing event. I can easily do that on my own. So we will go ahead and just try this. All right, well, a little bit disappointed already in this one because I don't think it's going to give me what I want, but that's all right. What is this connected to? Oh, that's right, to my amp clamp. We're not going to be doing that. It's going to run this one off of battery voltage, which is a little bit interesting. I've actually never done that, I don't believe. I wonder if I can put a channel B on here with the coil firing event for cylinder number one so that I can still do what I want to do, and that is the identification. So I'm not totally sure yet. Okay, so there's our connections. Yeah, the start button is now active. Let's give you a view of the screen. All right, so right now we've got no X or Y axes. Maybe we have them when we hit start. Please ensure the throttle is held fully open for the duration of the test. And click OK here. Checking voltage. It says crank engine. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, well, that was pretty cool. So I see what it does, that it makes it a little bit easier. It automatically calculates the percentage. Now, here's the thing, though, is that it looks here like cylinder number 2 is the one on low compression. It cannot possibly know that. What it is these are your just A, B, C, and D. This is not cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, cylinder 4. Cylinder number 2 may happen to be the low compression one. There is no way it would know that. But obviously, this is something that I could print out. The thing I like about this, I will admit, is that this, I think, is a better presentation for a customer. I don't think the customer is going to quite identify with our waveform that we typically would get, but that is something that I think anybody would look at, and even if they don't understand what a compression cycle is, they're going to clearly see that this is something very wrong. And then when I explain how serious this is, the data is irrefutable on here. The only thing is, this is kind of useless for me because I do want to know which cylinder it is, because I do want to give them a little more data. I just don't like the idea, just me personally, I don't like the idea of saying one of your cylinders is completely dead, I don't know which one. I just think it comes off a little more confident if I can say cylinder number 3 is misfiring, and even if I can say this is why it's doing it. I don't think I need to go that far with her, but I do need, I think, a little more specificity here. Plus, there's nothing we're going to be able to do, but obviously if I know which cylinder it is, maybe we can do a little more investigation into how serious this is. This is good. The only other thing with this, I wonder what the pressure is there. Here's what my problem is with this. I don't see, let's see, it says cylinder volume, use pressure. It says use pressure sensor here. But the problem is that I don't understand where you identify which cylinder it is. It's not asking you what vehicle this is. It's not asking you what the firing order is. I'm probably wrong about this. I'm probably wrong. But I don't think, based on this, there is a way that you can actually do the cylinder identification, at least from what I'm seeing. So let me repeat this my way. I want to get a cylinder identification. All right, and actually I've changed my mind again. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to do this the most basic way. I just need to know which cylinder this is. The quickest way to do this is a cylinder drop test. There's no way around it. So screw this. Let's just get this done. All right. You can hear the misfire. You can see it's shaking really bad. Going to drop number 1. Total change. Do that again. Total change. Let me zoom you in a little bit. All right, again, we've got cylinder number 1. Drop it. Engine almost dies. Let's go to number 2. Nothing. Look at that. Cylinder number 2, absolutely no change. So this is a cylinder number 2 problem. We'll just go down the line anyway. Number 3, definite drop in RPM. Number 4, definite drop in RPM. Cylinder number 2, disconnected, no change whatsoever. So it is cylinder number 2 that is our problem. All right, well, we have a cylinder number 2 issue here, so that helps significantly. What I'm going to do, I can tell you it smells like raw fuel, even just running it a little bit like that. Because I know this woman's going to have to be driving this car a little bit, I think what I'm going to do is Fuel injectors are probably under here, I imagine. They are, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect number 2 so that it quits squirting fuel in there. This will help her catalytic converter a little bit, help from diluting the oil with fuel. Get a little more life out of this car, assuming that she's going to be probably still having to drive it for a little bit, so that'll help out a little there. What I want to do now is determine just how bad this situation is here. I want to see, is this a bottom end or a top end problem? We're going to get a ratchet here. Think about it. The origin of the universe would be one of 2 things. Either something always existed or something came from nothing, neither of which is scientific. That really bothers me. All right. But if there was a God, well, then he also either always existed or came from nothing, which would be 2 scientifically impossible events. So I put less likelihood on that, and that there is only just one or the other, all the less unlikely event. Yeah, that spark plug's dripping with fuel. All right, now that I have to concentrate again, what we're going to do here is I am going to put a little bit of oil in that cylinder, and we are going to see if we increase compression then, which means that I needed my scope again. So I think what I'm going to do again, just because I'm just going to go old school on this, I'm going to go get a compression gauge. So the first thing we're going to do is get a baseline. This, of course, is going to show 0. There's actually really no reason to do this, but I just do this because I'm just kind of conditioned to doing scientific process. We have to have negative control, and that is this is just a procedural thing. All right, let's get this up here where we can see it. All right, as you can see, we have just about no compression. I think we moved about to 10 pounds at the most there. All right, so now what we're going to do is add some oil into the cylinder. And what that's going to do, it's going to seal up around the rings. And if we get an increase in compression, basically that's going to be pretty strong evidence this is a bottom end problem for this engine. That would be pretty fatal. That's indicating rebuild, as opposed to if we don't see a change in the compression, then almost certainly this is top end problem. Probably still fatal for all practical purposes, but not as bad. It's something that a cylinder head reconditioner replacement would fix, most likely. One thing I want to do is see if I can see the top of the piston. Oh, easily. Looking for any evidence of like a hole in the piston or something. I can only see a very little part of it, but it doesn't look like the piston is damaged, and no reason to suspect that that would be the case. Let's get a little bit of oil in here. Got a long funnel that will reach down just to the spark plug threads. All right, don't need a lot of oil here. Probably like about a tablespoon, really. So maybe, there we go, about 3 pumps or so of oil with the gun. I had to prime it up a little bit there. But, you know, maybe a couple tablespoons of oil is all you need. And that is now in that cylinder. If we have like a valve that's stuck open or something like that, it's just going to squirt the oil right through it, not increase compression. You got a blown ring or worn rings or something, the oil's going to seal around that. It's going to increase the compression somewhat. Blown head gasket, you would not see a change in the compression. Don't believe this is a blown head gasket, but we could do a leak down and find out. Again, I'm not really too worried about what the specific issue is. I just want to know top or bottom end. Let's zoom in on that. All right, and that's all we need to see. Compression is exactly the same as before. This is a top-end engine problem. Realistically, what I do in these situations is I generally would remove the cylinder head, look for where the issue is. It would be pretty obvious, and take it to a machine shop. But we're still talking, realistically, most likely around $1,500. The next step I want to do is look at what this vehicle is actually worth to see if it even makes sense. If the cost of the repair is significantly more than the value of the vehicle, I generally suggest you're better off just ditching the vehicle and getting another vehicle of approximately the same value. Let's go take a look. Oh, what's this? Oh, yeah. That is what I'm talking about. Nice. All right, sometime in the future. Okay, let's go Google. Let's go to my car sales and values on Blue Book. Put this as fair right now. It's kind of hard when you've got mechanical problems like this, where a serious mechanical issue, it could be argued it's poor condition. It won't give you a value for a poor condition, actually. So this is the best we're going to do. We just kind of get a ballpark. Notice 216,000 miles on this thing. And we would do private party, I believe. And wow. Well, okay, so this is actually kind of a phenomenon where right now, I don't know about the rest of the country, I believe it is true, but I know for a fact in Colorado, used car prices are just outrageously high. It's kind of like housing values right now. And so realistically, this car's still maybe possibly worth $1,500 at minimum. Because one of the reasons is because the car otherwise is in pretty good condition. And realistically, if the car was running perfectly normal, I do not think that almost $4,000 is really out of the realm here. We can scroll down here and see the best that this car, it's got some body things on it. It has cracked windshield. It's got some interior where we've got some other things for sure with the car. The very best we would do if we really put some effort in this car would be good condition, and you can see that you could get up to $4,500. That's not going to happen for this car. But realistically, the car could be legitimately worth up to $4,000 if we fixed it. There is some argument that it may be worth repairing this car. But the problem is that I just don't think she's going to have the means to, even if I just did it at no labor cost, I just don't see that she has the means to do this, especially after all the money she already invested. And also the time. It would take me, I'm booked for weeks. It would just take me a long time to do this. So I may talk to her about, what she can put together on her own and see if we can get her another vehicle that I can inspect and ensure that it's in better condition than this. But yeah, that's about the best we can do. All right, after conferring with Marge, she says that she really appreciates what I found. She is actually quite upset, to say the least, very worried about it. She asked me to do whatever I can to keep the car running until further notice. She does plan to get rid of the car and get a different one, but that's just not going to be possible right now. She is most worried about the fact that she's got doctor's appointments coming up next week. She needs the car to be running, so also it's snowing really bad right now and everything. Again, with the steering issue, there is a safety concern. She did ask me if I wouldn't mind, even though it's against better judgment, it seems, if I wouldn't mind doing the tie rods so that she can get the car at least aligned so that she has better steerability and makes her feel safer, and it probably does. So we disabled that fuel injector to help give some longevity to this. I kind of figured this was going to be the case. I'll go ahead and replace the tie rods at no cost to her. It's really easy to do on these models, and so we've got the best we can do to keep this woman going to the doctor for as long as she can, to be honest here. It's kind of a bad situation. So, yeah, maybe not the happiest ending on this one, but, that's the best we can do. And if I wasn't filming, none of this would have been any different. So glad to have you guys along with me, though. Really appreciate your support for the channel, and thanks for watching. Hope you found this entertaining, and we will see you next time.